Should the Browns sign this veteran? Or should they sign this veteran? Or should they sign this veteran? Man, we need the Browns to get back to practice. But we'll talk some veterans and run it up the flagpole. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, the OBR's Pete Smith is in the house. I appreciate each and every one of you that make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. If you are not part of the everyday crowd by now, well, make a new plan, Stan, and subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. And of course, the show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Obviously, Cleveland Browns have not played a football game since Thursday. You think we'd still be riding the high, clinching, 5 seeds secure, maybe not have to play some people this week, and that gets a little trickier than y'all think. But the OBR Pete Smith is here. Pete, we kind of tilted this whole episode off. Obviously, late in the day here, Tuesday, and give me some credit, folks, because right now you could tell me it's blah, 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 blah day, and I would probably believe you. I need the structure of people back in school. We're slowly getting there. Dalvin Cook released by the New York Jets. Obviously, Pete, Dalvin Cook was a popular name during the summer before we finally did settle on and set in with the Jets. It doesn't, connecting the dots to this, yeah, there's a lot to it. Obviously, his relationship with Coach Stefanski, his time with Minnesota. Well, his legs are fresh. I don't know how fresh his legs truly are, but, hey, Pete, to cook or not to cook, Dalvin Cook is now available.
Well, Dalvin Cook made a whole lot of sense in the offseason when he was available, and then the Jets gave him an insane amount of money to secure him, which
to watch Breece Hall play.
Super great for them, and was not a waste at all. So now that he's free, you essentially have the ability to get him for a bargain basement price, and the Browns of all the teams scream out the best fit for him. One, because the Browns, save for this past week where they ran all over his former team, they haven't really run the ball particularly well. So it's not like they have, a rotation that you can't get into. And then obviously Hall, for Cook's sake, you look at a guy who had his best years when Kevin Stefanski and him were both with Minnesota. He certainly knows the style of offense that's been a good fit for him. And the other element that Cook gives you is viability as a pass catcher, which is what really made that an intriguing option in free agency. It was basically like trying to get Kareem Hunt a couple years ago, in where you hoped a guy like Cook could be. So now that the Browns have a open spot sitting on their practice squad, they have the ability to add a player, whether it's Cook or someone else, and the risk-free proposition of doing it on the practice squad to evaluate him and sort of see if it works and get him ready potentially. I don't think it would be realistic to then have him try to run in the game against the Bengals, but going to the postseason, if you feel like he gives you something that one of the other guys doesn't, then you can promote him. Keeping in mind that a guy like Pierre Strong is a contributor on special teams. So it's not like you would be carrying a back that doesn't do anything in that situation. But Kareem is so specialized in what he does well. Pierre Strong is inconsistent in terms of how much they seem to trust him. We may get a further indication this week. This feels like a game where Pierre Strong could get a whole lot of run, and maybe he looks really good, and they go, wow, we have to get this guy the ball more. But just as another way to potentially try to see how they can exploit opportunities, see somebody who runs the ball in a way that is more familiar like Nick Chubb would, just in terms of feel and understanding. There's an interesting opportunity here. it's just a question of, one, does Cook like the fit, and does he have enough juice to make it worth it?
This is where, look, I mean, me personally, Kareem Hunt, what he's done this year has been incredible. The 9 touchdowns, been a true short yardage back, and has been really, really successful at it. Has only averaged 3 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook, 3.2 yards per carry. I mean, you tell me you want to bring that in when you already have Kareem at least getting the job done and there's something to show for it. I don't necessarily see it that way. Here, however, Elijah Moore, as we all know, is, obviously in the protocol. Don't know how serious it is. And whatever doctor saw a video and says something like the young man should retire, that is completely egregious. You didn't speak to him. You have no idea what the tests are. Don't do things like that. That is disgusting in its face to do. But if there was a scenario where Elijah Moore may not be available to go in the first round of the playoffs, you already have Dalvin Cook, you have Kareem Hunt, maybe you would have Pierre Strong, and absolutely Pete, he's a fantastic gunner. Yes, he maybe only returns 1 kickoff per week, but that is also part of his duties on this team as well. Jerome Ford's got some pretty serious receiving ability. So if you needed to, maybe in a pinch, to say, hey, we may have to use Jerome as a little bit more of a receiver option, and therefore we might need an extra running back, maybe there is a scenario where it could work. Otherwise, I'm kind of good with it. Segment 2, we're obviously going to get to someone else. Segment 3, we're going to get to someone else. But Pete, real quick here, and you basically just laid it out here. Everybody thinks like the Browns are going to sit so many guys. There's a logistic to this, and it doesn't seem like the Browns are going to be able to sit as many guys as people think they are.
Right. The fact of the matter is that it's not like the preseason where you have 90 guys. You have your 53, and then you get 3 promotions per week off the practice squad. And we already know who one of those is going to be. Dustin Hopkins is going to be out. Short of a miracle. The Browns, when they announced he was week to week, they sounded nervous, like, we hope he's ready for the postseason. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have to use one of those on Riley Patterson to activate him to kick. You got 2 left. And you have a bunch of spots where you're in trouble if you want to try to sit somebody down. Like, you have literally 3 guards on this team currently, unless you think Nick Harris is an emergency guard, in which case Ethan Posick would then have to play if you're trying to look at him as a possibility jump in there. I'd be really stunned if they were to say, go ahead, Luke Wickler, let's see what you can do. Because you're probably going to sit Bitonio with his knee, which means Wyatt Teller's got to play. Defensive line, all your tackles have to play unless they promote somebody. And defensive end, this is the tricky part. I would be stunned if Myles Garrett's out there, and people would criticize the Browns endlessly for it. But
all you need to do is look at Bradley Chubb. And if you're that's it. Myles, you know what? Don't even stay here in Cleveland.
Yes. Beyond that, since Obanaya is on the active roster, and theoretically, you could put him out there week 18, but why would you? If he's only got so many, bullets in the gun relative to being able to rush the passer with a torn pec, it would be silly to use them this week. So you're already down 2 defensive ends. Stands to reason you're going to probably promote Sam Kamara, maybe one of the other guys down there, but Sam Kamara has been sort of the go-to. And even if you do that only gets you to 4, which means Zadarius Smith might have to take some reps this week. So it gets really tricky with how you want to sort of promote guys to extend your rotation. Maybe you promote another end, like the dude from Oklahoma, the 7th round pick last year. So then you don't have to play Zadarius Smith at all. But if you do that, that's literally it. You are Denzel Ward's going to be out most likely. Joe Flacco's going to be out. David Njoku could sit, but he might have to be ready to go. Amari Cooper, might have to play in that scenario unless they want to use one of those promotions on him. So it's a difficult decision. Yes, it's hugely valuable. They will get some guys off their feet. You asked yourself, and it's a question I don't know the answer. How much better can Myles be with 2.5 weeks of rest for that shoulder? How much better can Joe Bitonio be with 2.5 weeks off for that knee? Amari Cooper's heel. You already mentioned Elijah Moore. There's a lot of these guys where they could benefit a substantial amount and be really fresh, potentially heading into the postseason. Like, if there's a scenario where Myles Garrett could be 100% for the postseason, that's a huge get for you. But overall, it's going to be less than you think it is. and you're going to be sort of, a few key spots are going to be out, obviously, without Flacco in there and some of these other guys. It really changes how good the Browns can be, but you're going to see more players in there than you think.
And, look, that's what happens when you're working with a 53-man roster. That's what happens when you have to work with a certain amount of guys that you can put on the inactive list. If anything, it could be where some of these guys play, but necessarily by coach's decision don't finish. But more guys are going to be active and playing Sunday than most of you think they will be. We're going to continue on here. Your latest Locked On Browns, the OBRs, Pete Smith in the house. Do not go anywhere. If you're like me and you have a wife and you have 2 daughters who love live music, well, you better get to know Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets for your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices. You can views from your seat. They have a best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They offer a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. Heck, they even offer job loss protection. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can get a view from your seat before you buy, so you know what to expect when you get there. All-in prices show your total up front. There's no hidden fees afterwards. You buy tickets in seconds. 2 taps, you are in. You can find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, Gametime picks the seats for big time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. And again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We continue on here. Your latest Locked On Browns, Jeff Floyd, your host. I appreciate every one of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. The everyday crowd you want in. It's easy to get in. Don't need a nobody. Don't need a no passcode. All you got to do is subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Shows always available. Always free wherever you get your podcasts. The OBRs. Pete Smith is here. Pete, all these names are great. And, we'll get to the one in third segment everybody wants to talk about. Dalvin Cook's the new hot name. But this name's been out there for about 10, 12 days now. And for me, it's a slam dunk. It's not, and even still, even if Ogbo comes back, there is no such thing in this world as going into the NFL playoffs and nobody ever says, I'm a little concerned about them. They might have too many pass rushers. Justin Houston is out there. Bring him in. It is a slam dunk move for this defensive line. You could play a defensive line of Myles Garrett, Alex Wright on the inside, Zadarius Smith, whatever you want to do with the two of them, Justin Houston. It is such a smart move. I'm almost wondering if Justin Houston is just saying, I don't want to watch the play. I want to watch the playoffs this year. I don't want to participate.
Maybe. I do really like Justin Houston. And it may be a situation where
we've done this for like years now. Every time he's available.
I mean, he's like 35, but he just produces. And it may be a situation where he's basically like, call me when the playoffs start and I'll be ready to go and get the, what he hopes is 4 games, 3 games, depending on which team he would join. But yeah, I really like that setup. He just been productive the last few years. That's all he does. Get teams in obvious passing situations, which the Browns have been very good at, and just let him do his thing. The freedom that he would get in Jim Schwartz's scheme is certainly attractive. He wouldn't have to worry about, necessarily learning a whole lot in terms of, rules or anything else until potentially a Baltimore Ravens game where you then have to account for somebody like Lamar Jackson's legs. Other than that, it's you get to line up. We'll give you a number if we can find one. Line up and go get the quarterback. And yeah, it's a good setup. And to your point, the line of scrimmage, it always gets overlooked in the postseason. Everybody's focused on quarterbacks and weapons, everything. But if you can't get pressure on the opposing quarterback or protect your own, you are in a world of hurt in a one game out type scenario.
And you talk about some of these teams, that the Browns can face. Look, round one, obviously we're talking about AFC South. You get past that, look, not a lot of mobility amongst those quarterbacks. They move well, not great. But you still have Mahomes. You still have Josh Allen. You still have Lamar Jackson. So if these guys are tiring out your defensive line, to be able to just continue to rotate other ones in, my opinion, it seems to make a ton of sense and just smart sense. Now to look at this and, Miles is not going to play Sunday, and it's just that simple. He is just extremely too valuable. He's the most important player on this team. And, I said it, I don't know if it was last episode, but he's literally the Reggie Jackson term, the straw that stirs the drink. Just way too valuable. Denzel, obviously the reason you sit him is because, to Denzel's own misfortune, as aggressive as he plays at his size, Denzel at times is usually his own worst enemy. It's not a knock on Martin Emerson. It's not a knock on Greg Newsome. These guys are certainly worthy of, being, and how they played this year, especially worthy of saying, hey, they probably shouldn't be out there. But again, it becomes a numbers game, and you can't say we're not playing, and you have to play 11 at all times. So you have no choice. But one player, and this is an interesting one because, look, you have Juan Thornhill back in the fold. Do I think Juan's going to play on Sunday? Probably not. You're hoping Grant Delpit comes back for the playoff game. But a guy like Ronnie Hickman, you want Ronnie out there, and you want Ronnie to go bell for bell. Number one, because teams are going to continue to try to target the kid, Pete. And also, the way he's been playing, there's not a scenario right now where the Browns are going to take him off the field. If they have Grant and they have Juan, Jim Schwartz says, that's great. I can go back to what I was doing earlier in the season when I had three safeties that I had a lot of faith in.
Yeah. The flip side of wanting to rest guys is it does present another opportunity to get a look at some of your younger players that you've been sort of grooming. Ronnie Hickman has so quickly, put himself in a position where he's valuable that there's part of you that doesn't want to see him on the field because he has been so good, but you also want him to be able to get out there and show out a little because he's played really, really well since being able to get in there. So he's in that mix. Alex Wright's in that mix. Sayaki Ika and Isaiah McGuire should get plenty of opportunities to show out. Cedric
Be ready, Jonah Williams. Nothing like a rookie defensive end coming for you.
Yeah. So, with those guys, you obviously don't want to get guys hurt, but you would like to see those guys play well. And particularly with these younger guys, you get into the question of rest versus rust. In some of this case, it's trying to maintain momentum going into the postseason. So if Ronnie Hickman can play and stay healthy, that's great because it just gives you more fuel going to the postseason where you then could theoretically have, obvious passing situation. You have Hickman and Thornhill splitting the field in half with Grant Delpit, either in the slot or the box or blitzing or covering a tight end or whatever. And it just gives you ways to utilize your talent in the most effective ways possible. Hickman just provides a lot of options and they could switch it up. I mean, Juan Thornhill has, some may know from when he was coming out, has corner speed and agility. If you have to, you can put him on somebody and he can run with them and cover. Grant Delpit, obviously really good with tight ends, but it just changes the way you can play defense and you can disguise some stuff in ways that you ordinarily wouldn't. But it's a good problem to have that you've got enough talent where you're struggling to hide it all in a game where you're trying to rest guys.
And if you're not sure, and I'll tell you this one all the time, if you were not sure about the overall raw and just absolute freak athlete Juan Thornhill is, go to YouTube, put in Juan Thornhill basketball, and you will get a very, very good idea just about how athletic the Cleveland Browns free safety is. Getting ready to close it out here, segment 3. Don't leave just yet. OBR's Pete Smith with Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate you all for sticking along for the ride. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet. You have live same game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. It's the best way to find the most popular parlays, many, many more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Closing it out here, your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And if you are not part of the everyday crowd by now, well, get on the bus, Gus. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel, and you are in. Shows always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. How to save this one for segment 3, Pete? Because of the names being bantied around here right now, this one probably makes the least amount of sense. For anybody, the everydayers here of Locked On Browns, it was never anything personal with Jarvis Landry. But this fan base, when this move was originally made, and that was I guess it was probably early March before the 2018 NFL draft, you would have thought this franchise traded for Jerry Rice. The way this fan base just melted. And look, for what he was a pretty damn good player in the NFL. He was never what some people thought he could be. But Pete, Jarvis Landry? Bring back Jarvis Landry?
Yeah, what made Landry special is the fact that he was smart, he
tough.
Was
everything you wanted a player to be. But there's a big one missing.
And he played through anything.
Yep.
And you combine all those things, the fact he was not a good athlete relative to most NFL players, and that adds up. And you saw it. Like, he played through everything for so many years. And then, even with the Browns, he started to break down. And you saw him get hurt multiple times, and it kept him out for stretches. And then even after the Browns, he and the Browns parted ways, he goes down to the Saints and gets hurt again. So you are taking a player who was not a good athlete. You would be taking a player who was not a good athlete in the first place, is less of an athlete than he was before, and basically getting what amounts to a smaller, slower David Bell, which is the absolute opposite of what the Browns should want to add at this point. Getting slower was a huge problem in the playoffs the last time the Browns were in there, where Jarvis Landry got in a lot of trouble against the Kansas City Chiefs and could not do anything. So that's a really big issue. The potential of having less speed on the field. You are better off at that point just signing a tight end. And the other part is, like, Jarvis Landry is a really good zone beater. But if you play a team that's going to be heavy man, he is completely useless in those scenarios. He cannot get open. He's not going anywhere. All the veteran savvy is not going to matter when guys are just way faster than he is and more physical than him. So is it possible? I suppose. I don't know how badly Landry wants to come back here, given the way things ended. But he's just not. We're 2 years removed when he wasn't good with the Browns. I don't see what he's going to add, even on this very short schedule where you're saying, hey, we need you for, one game, potentially 4, but there's just not much there. And there are other guys out there, which I think you could add. I mean, there are other former Browns out there that I think you could add. The guy that jumps out to me, and I don't know if they'll go this route, but Dalen Baldwin was with the Browns all training camp. He suffered a hamstring injury, which was significant, was waived with an injury designation, and then has been sort of healing and got healthy.
And if I'm pretty sure, he did work out for them somewhere like in the last month to 6 weeks.
And that was a guy that the Browns were sort of like, keep our number intact. We may need you. And he's produced for the Browns. You go back to the when Deshaun Watson played against the Ravens game,
Yep.
Like Dalen Baldwin had a bunch of catches in that game, then left with an injury, unfortunately. But he's another guy who's like 6'2", 200 pounds, that fits in that sort of role that the Browns like. He can block. He can do some of these other things. I don't expect him to like come in and be a major contributor, but at least he's got Sunday experience in games that count. Whereas, the Austin Watkins of the world, which are an option, I think the Browns are largely going to be pretty content with who they have. But if they want somebody else who's got a little more experience, he's one that makes sense and is freely available for you and has been with the Browns far more recently than Landry has.
And comes with some size, a little bit of a bigger guy. And, Joe seems to obviously, mesh well. We know some of these bigger guys. And, the thing that I think about when we say Jarvis Landry in this instance, I go back to years ago, the NBA draft when the New York Knicks drafted Kristaps Porzingis and Steven Smith. He's 2 years away from being 2 years away. Jarvis Landry is 2 years away from being a highly productive player in the NFL. So, I mean, look, I won't deny what he did, and he was not the only one that changed the culture here. He was a big part of what changed the culture here. Came in with professionalism, all of that, absolutely. But it also almost seemed like the second Odell Beckham Jr. came here, it didn't work out anymore. And look, no. He's not going to beat breast man coverage. There is no way you gain athleticism as you get older. There's no way you get better being away from the game. You want to bring Jarvis in at some point if you got another home game and let him smash a guitar. I'm cool with it. I am. Bring him into play for the team? That's a no. He is Pete Smith, part of the OBR. Obviously, the OBR now, obviously, some recent changes, obviously bringing Pete in, some other folks coming in. The work just continues to get pumped out. Fantastic content, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out. It's year in, year out, season in, season out. You get the drill. Make sure you check out, obviously, the podcast. Browns Buddies, Pete and Breed over there do still continue to do a fantastic job. Make sure you're following at _Pete Smith _ myself. I have been here now hosting this Locked On Browns podcast with you guys for 7 years. This is by far as awesome as 2020 was, as great as 2018 was. This has been incredible for all that this team has gone through and what they've done week in, week out. I could not be more appreciative to be here and more thankful to be here to enjoy all of this with you. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every day. Just subscribe to the damn YouTube page. You all know the drill. Get on in. And of course, the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns. Bada bing.